Welcome to the Especially for Athletes podcast, where we explore essential principles that empower athletes to learn life's most valuable lessons through sports.
What's up? Welcome, everybody. Dustin and I are so glad to be with you today. We're going to talk about a really important principle today, and that is not being an idiot parent. Is that a good topic, Dustin, or Coach? I don't know. What would be a good topic for this discussion we're going to have?
I think we're at a point in some of these, and particularly what we're going to watch today, which is you'd think is pretty uncommon, but it's not actually. It's an idiot. Idiot's probably not it's probably an appropriate word. Let me put it that way.
Well, I think that we just get so worried about all the wrong things. I was thinking, Dustin, about when I saw this clip that we're going to show today, and we'll describe it for everybody, but I was thinking about something that we show in our presentation. I'll put it up here on the screen. One of our longtime athletes, Ella Balstead, said at the end of a podcast that she filmed with us this quote: "Always have the end in mind." And by the way, she was talking about her parents and complimenting her parents, and we have had interactions with her parents. You know her parents well, but she was complimenting her parents. She said they always had the end in mind and realized that sports are a tool to shape your children into the individuals that they are meant to become. So I love it because it's this idea that it's not about wins or losses. It's not about some of these things that parents seem to worry about. You know, before we drive to another tournament, before we question another umpire or referee or whatever that's doing their best, before we argue another call, we just have to ask ourselves the question, like, what are we actually doing here? What are sports about? What are we trying to produce? Are we trying to raise kids who win youth games, or are we trying to raise resilient adults? And because those two things are not the same things. Like winning games, being able, as you've said in the past, Dustin, to post an Instagram post about your child winning, it doesn't lead to resilience just because you think a win might build their confidence. And so we came across a video recently. I've showed this to you, Dustin. There's just so much wrong in this video. And I want to share the video, and then I want to read what a guy, Jake Savicki, said in a post about it. The reason why I'm reading it is I cut out a few choice words. But let me set the scene here. So,
well, and for those that aren't watching this, Shad, set it. Describe what happens so that people who aren't watching can and understand that whatever you say, it's not nearly as descriptive as the video is. Like if you watch the video, you'd be like, "Holy smokes!" Yeah.
So this guy, Jake Savicki, he starts out by saying this: "You're going to be hard pressed to find a video that accurately sums up how adults are ruining youth sports. Buckle up, here we go." Okay, so I'll set the scene and then I'll describe it as we play it. This is a 9U game. So these kids are 9 years old in Texas. The kid hit a home run late in the game to put his team up 4-3. It was a 2-run homer. They were down 3-2. An amazing moment for the kid and his teammates. Okay, now I'm going to play the clip and I'll describe it the best I can. If I leave anything out, just chime in. Okay. So here we go. Boom. Crushes the ball. Home run. Now his team is up 4-3. Teammate running to home base. There's another guy that's on base, and he's going to run, and he stands off to the side without touching the home plate. Now his teammate's saying, touch home. He does, obviously, and then they just totally maul the kid. They hit the home run. Okay? So just to pause it for a second, the kid on base stands next to home base, doesn't touch it, and his teammates notice that. The umpire's staring right at it, and his teammates like tap him like, "Hey, touch home base, touch home base, touch home base." And you see him move his foot over to touch home base. He does, and then you got the guy coming around third, and then they maul the guy who hit this home run. Okay. And that's where this situation starts to devolve. Okay, so,
step on the plate, Bryce. Which runner? The first runner. First runner.
So the coach is appealing and says, throw it home, touch the base. The umpire says, which runner? Which runner? And he says, the first runner. And I don't know why this bugs me so bad, Dustin, but it's the coach's reaction. So the opposing team has just hit this home run this guy will remember the rest of his life. And they throw it home. You could see the catcher right now, if you're watching this, holding up his hand. Like the catcher doesn't even know what's going on. Touches home base. He's holding up his hands like this. Like, I don't know. And the coach says, the first runner didn't touch home base. And then the umpire signals that he's out. And the coach,
Yes!
the coach pumps his fist. Right? Pumps his fist. I'm going to go back to that. Here it is.
First runner. Yes!
I don't know why that bugged me so bad. Okay, so now they're meeting.
Let's go.
With the other coach. There's the slow-mo of the kid touching home plate when his teammates are telling him to. And then they maul it.
First runner's out. That's the third out.
And then the umpire says, first runner's out. That's the third out. The other coach comes in. He's seriously going to do it.
He didn't touch it at all. He went to the side. He went to the side. And then your teammates.
You have that? Hey, guys,
I do.
Don't worry. Hey.
You know what? You got it.
Now he's going to throw everyone out. Okay, I mean, so much wrong with this, Dustin. Before I get your reaction, to let you decide what swear words you're not going to say, here's what this guy, one of my favorite guys, Jake Savicki, he's the one who does the balls and strikes. Like he'll show a pitch that's obviously a ball, and he'll go ball with sunglasses. And this is what he says: the umpire somehow agreed that he never touched home plate. Called the runner out, which was the third out of the inning. The home run doesn't count. So this is this Jake guy. Now, I don't know the guy. I don't know his coaches. I don't know any of those three guys. But I hope he sees this, and I hope he knows that I think he made a terrible decision. That's me changing his words, by the way. Because you don't have to be a baseball expert or a great coach to realize these are 9-year-olds. Is it worth taking this moment away? My kids now get to deal with the adversity of giving up a late home run. My pitcher gets to learn to deal with it. My whole team gets to learn from it. Or do I just bail them out on some technicality where the kids stepped on home plate anyway and take the moment away from everybody, including the kids on the other side? That kid might now just be so excited about baseball because he hit a big home run. The kid running home, who did end up touching home plate, but they said he didn't, is now going to be disappointed and feel like he costed his team the game. It's probably going to ruin his whole weekend. So what? So that you could win a game? You sit there thinking about getting your team a win off a technicality that didn't even matter? So much so that as a grown adult, you're willing to ruin this moment for a 9-year-old. All right, Dustin. Why do we do that stuff, man? Like, why do coaches, I know you've had some experiences, like it was a home run, right? And you're going to take away a kid's great moment over a technicality so that you and a bunch of other 9-year-olds can win a game. Like,
yeah.
Tell me what your thoughts are on that whole thing.
Well, I've coached over 300 football games, youth level and high school as an assistant and high school as a head coach. But the youth level, I've coached several teams, including one or two that weren't even, my sons weren't on the team years ago. And I've seen some weird stuff happen in basketball, baseball, and football, all three of them. And I understand that coaches get into the game. And they get caught up in the wanting to compete and wanting to win. So I understand that. And there's things that coaches do and may react to that afterwards you may feel embarrassed about or wish you'd handled a little bit differently. However, in situations like this, I've never understood how a coach doesn't have the awareness, or how a parent doesn't have the awareness to understand the big picture. That, you're even in this particular case, so you win the game. You still had the home run hit off you. Like that pitcher, he gave up a home run. He knows that. He's going to look back at that moment and know that I lost the game, or we lost the game. I gave up, but the guy gets the out, and the video shows him start walking to the pitcher with his hand up to high five him. It's stuff like this that the kids would have gotten over the loss, like it happens. But the coaches, you can see just how eager they want it so badly to be the winning coach. I don't know if it's to go to work on Monday and say we won the championship, but when the coach starts wanting it more than the kids, which we do sometimes as coaches, like we do, that's not necessarily always a bad thing, because you want to teach the kids how to compete, but you have to understand that you're teaching, and it's not what you say, it's what you emphasize that the kids remember. And if you emphasize that winning is the only thing that matters, and a technicality like a kid barely or not, maybe he just touched the corner of the plate or something. He clearly was trying to touch the plate after his teammate told him to, even if his teammates didn't tell him, right? I would think the coach would say, hey, coach, on the third base, he didn't touch it. Just, you may want to tell him that after. We're not going to appeal it. Like, what a play. Great. We're not going to appeal it, but just let him know, because later in life, that another coach might, appeal. Just handle it like an adult. Make it a learning lesson, instead of, I'm sure those coaches feel justified in saying, well, they got to learn how to play the game right. And that's in the rule. And I'm just following the rules, and not at 9U, right? And not even and as they get older. Like, if a kid makes a mistake and something like that, it's not in the action of the game. The game had stopped. They're just running the bases, right? It just let it go and use it as a learning lesson. And, anyway, I don't get it. I wish parents and coaches would be a little bit more aware of how they're acting, and just ask themselves, because they all see these clips. Everybody sees these videos online, and probably has the thought like we do of, oh man, that parent's nuts, or that coach is crazy. Well, I just encourage parents and coaches to say, well, are you that guy? Like, I've told you, I wanted to give t-shirts out to parents that say, I'm that mom, or I'm that dad. Just congratulate them and say, hey, you've made such a fool of yourself that congratulations, you're that mom. Here's your t-shirt. Wear it around, right? Like, you're the one that everybody talks about, because I don't think they realize it. And clearly in this moment, I think a mistake was made, and then the umpire makes it worse by the dramatic, throwing the other guy out, instead of just he knows the other guy's going to be upset. He's going to be emotional. Let it go. Let everybody calm down. But you make it worse. I'm sure the video even got worse after that, because now you just threw a coach out. And what's going to happen in 5-10 years from now. Every one of those kids, they're not going to remember much about that season. They're going to remember that play from that game, and the way that it was handled by the coach and the ref. And probably I'll laugh at it and be like, I can't believe our coach did that, and I can't believe the umpire did that. And but in the meantime, yeah, you just ruined a kid's experience.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I wonder about the psychology of it. Like I was telling you before, just in our pre-show, that I saw it happen at a 10-year-old girl tennis match. This time of year, many years ago, when there's a city league tennis tournament at the end of the year here in Utah Valley, and there was one team that was beating another team pretty good, and then this dad realized that when these two girls were serving, it was a doubles match, that they were most of the time stepping on the line like every other 10-year-old girl tennis player at the city level. And so in his mind, he got this moment that, oh my gosh, if my daughter starts calling a foot fault every single time these girls serve, then it's going to be a great advantage to to them. But then I watch these two girls trying to worry about their feet because there's this 45-year-old guy yelling football every time they serve, and they're starting to have to deal with all this stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is the objective here? What do you think is happening here? That if your daughter wins this tennis match at age 10, that it's going to change the trajectory of her life enough to belittle 10-year-old little girls and make them feel stupid as they're serving. So that's my question, I guess, Dustin, is just, when you think about the psychology, because we all like to think we're not that parent until we get in the moment. What makes a parent think that winning that 9U tennis, or I'm sorry, that winning that 9U baseball game is so critical to do something like that? What do you think happens in the heart or mind of that? I'm that parent,
Yeah, I just think we're not, in those moments, I don't think anybody is really thinking. And I say this in full transparency, that I think every one of us, including you and me, in moments of passion for a team, I don't really have any teams I cheer for. But as a coach, in the moment, you're wrapped up in it. You may react and say or do certain things that, a couple hours later you look back on, or you see yourself on a video and be like, oh man, that wasn't my best moment. I don't understand it at the kid level, because I at least I felt like I had a bigger picture rather than just that moment. I could see past that hour, that realized that they were that age and that this was for fun, and right. And it's a teaching opportunity. No one's going to remember this game. So I think honestly, it's parents reliving through their kids. And I think anybody who says I don't do that is also lying. I think we all relive a little bit through our kids. I think we enjoy, it brings back a little bit of the love that we had for competing and playing. And when our kids are successful, we feel like we won too. Like, we can deny that that's the case, but I think we're lying to ourselves that we all get a little bit of a thrill out of watching our kids. We'd much rather see them win than lose. But at that young age level, I just think sometimes parents are these first time coaching, I'm sure for those dads, they're the big coach now, and they're taking that role so seriously that they turn into, a Major League Baseball coach in that moment, instead of realizing he's a 9U coach and understanding that his goal, he's not going to lose his job if he loses that game, like, a Major League Baseball coach might if he didn't appeal that. Right? Like, you don't do that in the pros. You'd appeal it, right? The guy should have known. But at this level, you're not going to lose your job. What you are going to do, though, is be able to pull your kids aside, talk about what happened. You could even say the kid didn't touch the plate, guys. But you know what? The kid had a great hit. We're not going to appeal that, guys, because we got to learn how to close games better and get out of those moments. What are we going to do to be better next game? Talk to your pitcher about it. Let him learn. There's so much that could have been done. I remember my dad, and I pitched, and I was a pretty good pitcher growing up, and you and I played in college, and I used to pride myself at not giving up a lot of home runs, and don't get me wrong, I gave some up, and in college I gave up a couple big ones. But I remember in a big game that we had, my dad told me, when you give up a home run, I want you to go over. I'm not exaggerating this, because it was hard as freaking heck to do. And I'll never forget, I was 12. I gave up a grand slam in a really big game to their best player, who was a kid I knew. Like, it was kind of a rivalry game. And I'd gone swimming earlier in the day, which I shouldn't have done. We all know you don't do that on Gager. And big game that afternoon, and I couldn't throw a strike. This kid hits a grand slam, first inning, number 4 hitter. It's an awful start. My dad told me when I gave up a home run, I had to walk over to third base, shake the kid's hand, and tell him good job. And sure enough, he hits the home run. I looked up thinking maybe he'd forgotten about that. My dad pointed to third base, and I walked over and shook the kid's hand. And, maybe my dad was doing that so people could tell him what a great son you have, what great sportsmanship. Maybe it was selfish. I don't know. Or maybe he was teaching me to compete without contempt, and to be humble, and to teach me how embarrassing that was to do that, to not go swimming in the morning, take my games more serious so I didn't have to do that again, because that's what the lesson turned out to be. I didn't want to have to do that. You know, it was tough to go do that. But I want to read something real quick here, Shad, because I just saw this the other day. It's from Wilma Rudolph, and she was a famous track star about 50, 60 years ago for the U.S. Olympic team. And she said, winning is great, sure. But if you are really going to do something in life, the secret is learning how to lose. Nobody goes undefeated all the time. If you can pick up after a crushing defeat and go on to win again, you are going to be a champion someday. That was the chance that coach had right there, to pick his team up and say, all right, we lost today. How are we going to learn from this and win? Instead, I assume if they won the game, those kids are going to go home. All the parents are going to go home. And we won the game because a kid was missed home plate by a centimeter, a quarter of an inch, or did touch it and the ref didn't see it. Like, we feel good about going out to get pizza today and celebrating this. A missed moment, missed teaching moment. Coaching is teaching. It's not, you're a teacher first. That's the job of coaches at all levels, but especially at the youth level. You're teaching so much to these kids, and there's so many opportunities if you're looking for them. We'd say if your eyes are up. It's teaching them how to win the right way, how to compete, how to lose the right way, and blown opportunity for those coaches and parents. Hopefully parents talk to their kids after, but blown opportunity by that coach. And
that's what this Jake guy, part of his little diatribe there that he recorded, he asked a few questions. He said, is it worth taking this moment away? My kids now get to, speaking from the point of the coach that protested, my kids now get to deal with the adversity of giving up a late home run. My pitcher gets to learn to deal with it. My whole team gets to learn from it. Or do I just bail them out on some technicality? And I, like you, Dustin, I know that some might listen to this be like, well, they got to learn at some point. That kid's going to step on home base every single time now. I keep calling it home base like I've never played baseball before. It's home plate. but it's like, you know what I'm saying? I get that part of it. However, you stole that moment, like you were just saying, to learn how to lose. Or it's as late in the game this happened. Like, let's go after it. Let's not take those 2 runs off the board. Let's go get our own 2 runs and let's win this game. And so it just goes back to that. I know this is a short podcast today, but it just goes back to what Ella said. This young lady who had accomplished so much in soccer, had gone on, played at BYU, and is now this wonderful adult that's doing different things other than sports, but applying every day the lessons she learned from sports in her life. When she looked back at her parents to say, I appreciate that my parents viewed, to put this quote back up, that my parents always had the end in mind and realized that sports were a tool to shape their children into the individuals they were meant to become. I think it would stop so much of this stuff that we just witnessed, those moments, if instead of thinking about the objective of sports being winning games, that we start to view it as a tool to shape children and to teach. And win or lose, there's teaching moments. That young man could have, the coach could have said, hey, you gotta, even when you're excited, you gotta make sure that you stay focused, you touch home plate, that you finish off the play every single day without stealing that moment from that kid. And I just thought it was a good example. I guess the inverse of what Ella said her parents realized about sports is that they were a tool. They weren't a tool for parents to work out their own dreams and accomplishments. They're a tool to shape kids. And if we just had that in our mind, in our pre-show, you were talking about, we're going to have a bunch of youth football coaches out there that are going to be standing behind their quarterback that see things that the defense are doing, that if they want to cheat a little bit and say some things, they could win some games if they're the coach that's willing to do that.
Yeah.
Or they could let their kids experience stuff and then teach, win or lose, teach.
Yeah.
So any closing thoughts, Dustin, on this?
No, just that, parents, if you're listening and find yourself in those situations, as a coach or as a parent, know you're going to be emotional. It's okay, but you got to control it. As a parent, we're all going to be a little bit more uptight or emotional when it's our kids out there playing, and we have to go into it understanding that. If you're a coach, you're going to have an extra level. You do feel a little bit of responsibility and embarrassment when you don't do well and you lose. And so sometimes that, you fight a little bit more and maybe overreact to things a little bit more, because as much as you say it's about the kids, and I don't care. As a coach, you do care. I think all good coaches, take pride in putting a good product out there, and they want to win. But at the end of the day, like I said, you're a teacher. What are you teaching by the complaining that you do, the excuses that you make, and the methods that you might take to win if they're shallow like this particular situation? What reputation are you really making, not only for yourself, but then for the boys and the girls, and what are you teaching them? And so just be careful. And then to the kids, this is what we've got to teach them. I wish we could do training in school to kids to help them understand, hey, when you're a parent, here's what not to do, and here's what to be careful of, so that we don't repeat the same issues with the parents that are going to have kids and be in the same situation that kids were in front of, that are going to be parents someday and coaches someday. And hopefully the ones we work with will check themselves in this moment and be a little bit better. But yeah, we just got to stay after it, keep talking about it.
Your words remind me of a cool video I saw. It was a dad at a softball game sitting in left field, 30 feet behind the home run fence in a grove of trees. And it's a daughter laughing, saying, "This is what my dad does to control himself during softball games." And, maybe for some, it takes something like that. Just, I'm going to go sit up in the corner of the bleachers, and I'm not going to say a word, and I'm going to learn to control those.
That's what I would do. I would, at all my older son's baseball games, I would sit down the line, not so much because I thought I was going to say, or I just wanted him to, I didn't want to be around. I didn't want to say much. I didn't want him to hear me or hear my voice. I didn't want the coach to ever feel like I was looking over his shoulder, and I wanted to be away from some of the other parents. Yeah. And I do it in basketball too. I'd sit up at the top and just not say much. I'm so aware of that dad and not wanting to be that dad at a game. As a coach, I hope I haven't been that. I hope I'm not hypocritical and saying I don't yell at refs. So I don't think, but if I have, I'm embarrassed, but we need to just have self-awareness. So that's my final thought on it.
Awesome. Okay. Sports are a tool. Don't be a tool. Does that sum this up pretty good?
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. Eyes up, do the work.
Thank you for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. To learn more about Especially for Athletes organization, get a copy of our book, The Sportlight, or to bring our program to your team, school, business, or organization, visit us at especiallyforathletes.org.